Thanks for joining us, Josh Frydenberg. Appreciate it. Big story today revealed that you've been working with the Five Eyes countries. We talk about Australia, the US, UK, New Zealand and Canada, who cooperate a lot on intelligence matters, but you're looking at closer cooperation on economic matters. Why?
Well, that security partnership between the five nations has served Australia well. We have a shared history, we have shared values, and we have shared interests. And right now, there are some very challenging economic issues. And so I thought it wise to talk to my counterparts on a regular basis and in a coordinated way. And when I've been speaking to my counterparts around the world, they've expressed an interest in doing that. We're all members of broader groupings, in some cases the OECD or the G20 or indeed the G7. But this is going to help the five of us learn the lessons from each other's experiences and to swap notes about the economic measures that we're putting in place in response to the COVID crisis.
It looks like locking in an Anglosphere, doesn't it? That's the way other countries outside the group will see it.
I wouldn't portray it that way. I'd say that the five nations share a lot in common, already work together, as you say, in the security field, and this just adds an extra dimension to that coordination. Our leaders are in regular touch, our foreign ministers and our trade ministers are in regular contact too, and it's only appropriate that treasurers who are dealing with the economic impacts of this once-in-a-century pandemic are working closely together as well.
You don't think China will see this as another sign of the rest of the world sort of getting together in groupings against China? Because you announced this just days after announcing much stronger controls on foreign investment as well.
It's not about a particular country, it's about the challenging economic and increasingly complex strategic and geopolitical environment that we are facing. And when it comes to those foreign investment changes, Chris, we've been working on them for some time, and foreign investment has been of great advantage to our nation. It's helped develop so many industries, and 1 in 10 Australian jobs are created by foreign investors. But the reality is, with the evolution of technology and with the more complex geopolitical environment, we do need to have stronger rules in place to ensure we protect our national interest. And that's why we're putting in place a national security test so that foreign investors, not just foreign government investors, but foreign investors more generally, are subject to the scrutiny of the Foreign Investment Review Board when they invest in what is termed a sensitive national security business. Now, that may be in the telecommunications space, that may be in the defence supply chain, or in energy or utilities, or indeed data centres, or those that are collecting information about sensitive national security topics.
Now, you haven't been Treasurer for a long while. You must have dreamed with great anticipation and pretty good confidence too of being the first Treasurer in a long while to deliver a surplus. Now you're the Treasurer presiding over a recession, and perhaps the worst recession we've seen for a long while. Have you come to terms with that yet yourself?
Well, I don't think even Nostradamus would have predicted a once-in-a-century pandemic. This is an amazing event, and it's obviously had a huge economic as well as a health impact across the world. You're right, we were on track for delivering the first surplus in a dozen years. We delivered the first balanced budget in 11 years, and despite the fires, we were still on track.
There's a bit of history there, Paul Keating talked about the recession we had to have. Well, how do you describe this one? How do you pin it down? Because this is the recession we've imposed on ourselves in order to maintain our health.
Well, these are the economic impacts from the necessary health restrictions that we put in place. And we've always said that our first priority is the protection of human life. And if you look at the success and the progress we've made in flattening the curve, that has been something that the Australian people have supported us right along. this journey. And indeed, there are many other nations who are envious of what we've achieved on that front.
Now, I've got to show you something before you go get your comments on it. An outrageous cartoon, in my view, a disgraceful cartoon in the Australian Financial Review on the weekend. It's actually a David Rowe cartoon based on a famous painting of Cook's Landing. And it has you depicted there holding a spear, which is a dollar sign. David Rowe has agreed that is supposed to be you, Josh Frydenberg. You have a Jewish cap on. You have a hook nose. It's clearly an anti-Semitic issue, isn't it? Certainly the Melbourne Holocaust Centre says it is.
Look, I can understand why people were sensitive about that cartoon. David Rowe is a brilliant cartoonist, and I know the people at the AFR certainly didn't mean any harm by what they have seen in terms of the reaction from that cartoon.
There's no other way to take this, though, is there? He's portrayed you in a disgraceful anti-Semitic way.
But Chris, I've seen David Rowe's explanation. I accept that. We move on. But at the same time, I can see why some people felt very strongly about it.
Thanks so much for joining us, Josh Frydenberg. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Federal Treasurer Josh Frydenberg there, live from Canberra. I'll talk more about that cartoon in my media show at 8 o'clock tonight, but there's no way to push that aside. There's an anti-Semitic image there, and David Rowe has taken down the cartoon from his social media feed. So we'll talk more about that later on.